to the Biz Gone Social podcast. We help entrepreneurs navigate how to get known, get customers, and get the edge over their competition. Here is your host, Lorraine Duncan.
Hey, it's great to be back. So here we are again, and I'm so glad to be here. This is episode number 3. Do you believe this already? We're in episode number 3, and I've been talking about branding. And it's always my desire to give you a little bit of verbal caffeine that will energize your social media marketing and help you stay social. After all, really, don't you really want to be the business that everyone's talking about? Because I know that I do. So as you know, over the past few weeks, I've asked you if your brand was screaming on social media, not in the obnoxious way, by the way, but do people see you? And then last week I asked, does your brand make your audience feel good? And I told you all the important nuances of So this week I want to share a few things about getting your brand noticed on social media. And one of the things that I want to say is I want to talk a little bit of behind the scenes first setup, that you need to have a website and you need to be doing email marketing. But part of your brand is your website and getting your brand noticed in the in-mail box in people's email. So you want to make sure you're doing that. So that's the very least thing that you can be doing. And I think it's important that you have a website. It's very easy to use your social media marketing to get people to your website. And it just helps so much with the branding. So on to social media, because that's what I want to talk about, getting yourself noticed. So again, like I say over and over again, you always have to have some SMART goals. Specific, you want measurable, achievable, realistic and timely or time-bound. Let's talk about that just a little bit, because I think it's important that if you're on social media and you want your brand to be noticed, there's some things you need to know. It's like, so with the S, being specific. Well, what do you want to do? My goal is that I would love Biz Gone Social to be a well-known brand among business owners. You know, what action words will you use? State what you're going to do. Be specific. What do you want to do with your brand on social media? Make it measurable. How will you know when you've achieved it or reached it? Or I shouldn't say achieved it, because that's the next one, but measurable meaning, how will you know? Will there be a certain amount of numbers? Will there be a certain amount of return on your investment, such as making a new client or getting a new product sold or whatever that may be? That's measurable for you and your business. So for me on social media, I love to get a new client with social media. So I count that. I always say this, I spend a lot of time on Facebook, but I have not really gotten a lot of clients from Facebook. I get a lot of my clients on LinkedIn. So achievable. Provide a way to evaluate it. How are you going to achieve this? What metrics will you use? And that's easily done with the analytics that you see, and then just what Facebook and Instagram and all those social media platforms, a WordPress site, if you have it, they provide analytics. So it's very achievable. And so you want to know too, is like, how are you going to achieve it? The other thing, is it realistic? Can you realistically do this? Like, here's the thing. Somebody once said to me, well, you know what? I think my goal is I'm going to have 20,000 followers. Then I asked them by when, and they said, well, next week. It's like, realistically, that can't be done. So whatever you're choosing for your goal, make sure you realistically can do it. That's all I want to say with that. And timely, always set a time and a day when you're going to accomplish these things, whatever you want to accomplish with social media. Be specific on the date. I'm going to do this by July 5th. I'm going to start this on July 4th. I'm going to do this on August. I'm going to have this many followers by December. Whatever. Make sure you have that all set up for you. Next is I think what we miss with our branding, and I think it should be part of your branding, because how you listen to your customers and your clients and your audience says a lot about your brand. There's a saying out there, and I'm going to change it a little bit, because we have 2 ears, of course. We have 2 eyes, and we have 1 mouth. So we want to listen first. We want to listen. We cannot get our brand out there to the right people if we're not listening. It is so important. I'm doing this all the time. I'm trying to listen what people's needs are when it comes, for instance, with social media. What do you want? What do you want to accomplish with social media? Well, yeah, you know what? Everybody wants to accomplish, well, I want 3 million bazillion clients and whatever. But the thing is that I need to know what you want. I need to know what my target audience wants. So you really have to listen. So the next thing that I want to talk about is, don't forget to respond. A good brand, if they want to get noticed, they're going to notice that people are going to notice that you're responding. And they're going to actually read how you're responding. That says a lot about your brand, and they are going to make a decision by how you responded. So that's all about brand. It is brand. I mean, if you think about it, it's how you listen, how you respond, what you're setting up behind the scenes, such as your branding with your website. So important. And then I just don't ever want you to forget about this whole social media marketing thing. It's all about relationships. You really have to, your brand has to find a way. If you're a personal brand, even better, but you have to find a way that you can engage with your customers or your clients or your audience in a very meaningful way. So I'm like screaming at you right now saying, interact. You have to interact with your audience. So, I mean, one of the things is, a couple weeks ago when I talked about, does your brand scream? Again, not in an obnoxious way. I said, like, don't shout and yell at your followers. Like, always shout, yelling. You know, it's kind of like that teacher on Charlie Brown, blah, 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 because then they're not going to hear you. But you want to listen. You want to respond. You want to engage in a meaningful way, in a way that really your brand, it screams your brand. So the other thing that I think is really important is sharing content, making sure that your brand is in your content. What does that look like for you as a brand? If you want to get noticed, you're going to have certain things that you like to do. So what are you sharing? What kind of content, what kind of posts are you bringing to the table here? What does it look like? So I want to say it looks like a lot of things that your brand is. So it could be maybe your content, what you're writing about, what you're sharing with your audience. It could be other people's content, some things that have to do with your brand to bring your brand more into it. It could be business related content that has to do with your business or someone else's business, or just write out business tips or some quotes that are relevant to your brand. You want to remember that your posts have to capture other people's attention. So you want to bring in some insight to who you are as a person and who you are as a brand. Like I always say, always have fun with it and be relevant. The other thing that I think is really important, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but it's so important to your brand, because your brand should have some kind of visual to it. You want to be visual. So in your posts, of course you want to be visual. My brand, for instance, is Bizgone Social, and I have a little coffee cup. And that's my branding. I want to be about being social. I want to be about having relationships and creating relationships. That's me. I want you to think about how your brand can be more visual. So important. The other thing is just you want to share stories. I think that really helps with your brand. I think, when you think about different food commercials that they have on TV. There's always a story. You think about, I forget what brand it was. It was the spaghetti brand. And it might have been ragu for all I know. I make homemade spaghetti sauce. So you know what? I'm not a ragu person, but I do remember the story around sitting at the table with family, eating pasta. That story brought warmth to the brand of ragu. What story are you telling that's bringing that warmth? Remember what I said last week. It's that emotion that you want to trigger. So you definitely want to make sure that you are telling a story. Remember, here's an interesting thing is that it's important for your brand to get engagement. So to increase your engagement, for instance, online, you kind of have to get personal. I'll say this over and over again, but people they're really driven by anger, joy, interest, admiration, what's being modeled for them. They want to see that. So when you're sharing, just remember that every blog post that you post or write up and put on social media, every little quote that you put up, people want to engage with that. And then really, people are going to buy from people in your small business or whatever your brand is. They're going to buy from you if they're connecting with your story. So, I really feel like sharing stories is really so important to building your credibility online and getting your brand noticed online. I want to just encourage you finally, you just kind of need to do whatever you have to do to get your brand noticed. So the other thing that I think is important, that along with the posting and sharing of the stories and doing, of course, videos, I don't want get your brand noticed with videos. The other thing that I want to share with you is that you want to advertise sometimes. You have to advertise. You have to get more people. You have to increase those odds of getting more people to your brand to engage with your brand. So, I really hope this all helped. I want to just leave this conversation open. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me at Lorraine@bizgonesocial.com. I would love to, have a conversation with you, a little chat. And thanks again for listening to my podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Biz Gone Social podcast. Find us on Instagram @BizGoneSocial for extra tips. Check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, stay social.